No mock-up. We're just going for it. What's the worst that could happen? Hi, and welcome to my sewing room. If you watch my videos, you know that I mostly sew vintage garments using authentic vintage sewing patterns. And because of this, it doesn't leave a lot of room for how to sew vintage content or sew along content because the particular patterns that I'm using could be hard to come by. And so for my first fall make, I thought I would do something a little different and use a commercial vintage reproduction pattern that is readily available right now, and I will leave some links to it should you choose to pick up this pattern and follow along. So that's what we're doing today. It's a sew along, it's a how to sew a vintage dress, it's all of those things, and we're using this 1940s vintage reproduction pattern. It is a Vogue V9346. I really do love this dress. There's something happening in the back, and this detail is what makes this dress fun and interesting and attracted me to it. I don't know how that's going to work out in real life, but we're going to give it a try, and I hope you decide to sew along with me and learn how to sew a vintage dress. And the fabric I got from Fabric Mart. I really love the feel of it. It says it's a polyester floral print twill, and I have 3 yards of it that I got for $3 a yard, so can't really beat that. So $9 worth of fabric, our vintage reproduction dress, and we're going to do a how to sew a vintage dress sew along today. So get your pattern, get your fabric, and let's get into the sewing. So I'm here at my desk, and I'm starting here because I think this is often where I make the first mistake. I just jump right in, never think about the instructions until it is time to literally start sewing at the sewing machine. And so today I'm going to take the time to actually read through the instructions before I even begin. Okay, so now I'm getting out notions. In this box I have my buttons, and in the bottom box I have my zippers. These are vintage buttons I picked up from the sale. These are 3/8 of an inch. So I found these in there. I really do love these. I think these are gonna look great. And they're 5/8 of an inch. Said we needed some shoulder pads, and believe it or not, I had these already. I had to look for them, but I had them. And now we need a 12-inch zipper. Opposed to 12-inch. I think this color is a good choice. So I picked out all the notions. Next steps, getting the pattern pieces out and lay down on the fabric. I think it was either 12 or 14 pieces we were cutting out, and we're gonna do that. So I've done a rough cutout of all the pattern pieces. I'm going to just like bump the wrinkles out with a dry iron, which I need a new iron, so if you have any recommendations for an iron, please let me know. This one is, yeah. Okay, so yes, iron the wrinkles out of the pattern pieces, and then I will actually cut them to the size that I'm making, which I haven't decided yet. Now it's time to choose the size. The pattern envelope is telling me that my measurements, which is a 38-inch bust, that I should cut a 16. But on the paper pattern, it is telling me that a size 16 finished gives me 44 inches in the bust. And for me, I think that's just too much room. I like my garments to fit a little tighter. So I think I'm gonna cut a 14, which this is telling me when the garment is finished gives me a 42-inch bust. And so I'm hoping that that's enough room. I feel like it'll be enough room. Okay, so this is what we have here. I've just laid them out. I haven't pinned them in place yet, but we have piece number 1, number 5, and number 6, and number 8 cut on the fold. And then we have piece number 3, number 9, number 4, and number 14. What's left is piece number 2, which will be cut out of interfacing, and piece number 13, which I only have to cut once, so I didn't lay it down because this is folded in half. For here, the sleeves and both of the skirt pieces. So I'm going to pin these in place and get them cut out, and then we'll do the sleeve and the skirt pieces. Hi, welcome back. It's day 2. I finally have everything cut out, and now I'm going to transfer the markings, and then we can actually get started with the assembly and the sewing. So step 1 is the darts on bodice piece number 1. So I'm going to stitch these in, and then these get pressed downward and these get pressed in. So now I have the tucks on the skirt pinned in place. I'm going to get those stitched down and pressed, and then we will be moving right along. So the next step is pieces number 2 and pieces number 3. Pieces number 2 being the interfacing, you will attach to piece number 3, basting it along the stitching lines and sewing it down with invisible stitches in the middle. But instead of just using interfacing, which I use the iron-on interfacing, I'm actually going to attach the interfacing to some pieces that are cut to number 2, and so the interfacing will also have the fabric on it, so it's not just the interfacing, even though I know we kind of cover it up in some ways, I guess, at some point, but this is just how I'm going to do it, just to make it even more stable. So I'll iron this on to the wrong side of both of these pieces. What are you doing, girlfriend?
Hello. Hey, Major. What I made. It helped me make my Turbo Awaken steak. I have what? I know. Okay. Birthday. You want it? Yeah. Okay. Let me just read the norm power.
And so now we have to make bound buttonholes. So I put pins in here to mark my markings on here, and so that way I can match it up to my markings on here on the right side and the piece that goes to the right side. it's prepped and ready to go. I've just never done this before and I'm super scared to mess it up. I kind of want to just do regular buttonholes, but I think I'm going to give it a try because I do have enough fabric, so if I mess this up, I can just start over. And so now I'm working on step 20, which is piece number 8. And it says it wants me to turn in seam allowance on lower edge of skirt, yoke, back, and press. And what I really dislike is when their illustrations are wrong. And see, this is showing notches at the top and at the bottom. And clearly this piece does not have those notches. And so now that I'm aware that they often make mistakes, I can kind of move on. But when I first started using commercial patterns, I never thought that they would make mistakes. And so that would have left me really confused or thinking I've done something wrong, but I haven't. So now I have piece number 8 pinned down. It was a little weird because it says match up the notches, but this piece was too long to like set it on the edge, so I had to bring it down. But they don't really say anything about how far down it should be or what it should be doing. So I'm going to stitch it in place here and hopefully it all works out. So actually it worked out better than I thought it would. I just lined up the raw edges. It didn't say to do that, but it's probably what it wanted you to do. And then I stitched it down. Okay, so now we have the tie-ins. We have to fold in half on the fold line and stitch, leaving this notched edge open, and then turn and press and all that. Okay, and so now we have the tie-ins basted down to the back skirt piece. And so I'm going to attach the front skirt piece. Now that I have the skirt pinned together, both of the pieces, I see such a difference in how high this is, and then my markings don't match up. So after I stitch the skirt together, I'm going to take these stitches out and then raise that up until the notches match, or until the markings match. Now I have the sleeve and I'm going to gather between the notches here and E-stitch at the top of the sleeve head between the markings here. So now that I've redone the buttonholes because I didn't like the bound ones, it's time to attach the bodice back to the yoke pieces. And this is how they go on here. I attached the neck facing with interfacing on it, and then I went around and folded back the seam allowance on the facing edge, stitched it down, and then trimmed the seam allowance. Just gonna attach that way, and then it'll all fold in. Okay, so I thought mistakes had been made, but I really don't think they have. You have the fold line here, and so I folded it back and pinned down the neck facing, and now I'm going to stitch everything down and then it will turn in, and so that fixes these edges and all of the things. So this is done, we'll be able to see more of what it looks like, but it looks like I think that it should. So I stitched it in place, I trimmed it, and now I am understitching it. Now I'm going to turn and press it. So now I have the top pinned to the yoke, or the yoke pinned to the bottom part of the bodice, matching up the notches, and I'm just going to stitch it down in place. The yoke is attached to the bodice. It looks pretty good. I have some finishing work to do inside where I get this all tacked down. But now I have the bodice attached to the skirt. And once again, we'll top stitch it down on the outside. These are the ties. They're attached. And then I need to hem it and attach the sleeves and do the closing. And this will be finished. And this is the back. It looks pretty good, the tucks do, and I'm pretty proud of the work that was done here. So, gonna get the skirt stitched on. After I attached the sleeves, there was nothing left to do but the finishing work of the dress. Hemming the bottom, hemming the sleeves, putting in the zipper, that sort of thing. And so, remember this? No mock-up. We're just going for it. What's the worst that could happen? Yes, the worst thing that could happen is that this dress does not fit me at all. Not even a little bit. And I'm really sad about it because I put a lot of time and thought and energy into picking the pattern and picking the fabric and the construction and the pleats on the back. I really enjoyed the process of making this dress. I love this dress and it doesn't fit me. And so what I learned from this experience is to do mock-ups. The mock-up is definitely important. That is the beginning stage where you can pivot and make adjustments and do the things that will make your garment fit you the way that it should. And so from here on out, we're doing mock-ups over here. I am not kidding. This was a hard blow. I definitely learned my lesson and I am not letting this happen again. At this point, it is becoming wasteful of my time and my materials to make a garment that's either too big or too small or doesn't fit me as well as it could or flatter me as well as it could if I had made small tweaks in the very beginning. So yeah, that's where we're at with it. So here she is. She's really quite lovely. I love the buttons, the tie. I hemmed it, did the sleeves. I mean, this dress really came out well. I am very, very proud of it. And I am so sad that I cannot fit it. But she is cute. So that's it. If you're into this sort of thing of watching me trying to figure out this thing that is the making of garments vintage style, then feel free to subscribe. And I wanted to give you guys a tutorial where you learned some things that I've picked up over the past year of my vintage sewing journey. But I hope you did learn something. I definitely did, and so I'm happy about that. But yeah, this is a little painful to not be able to fit this, but I do have a friend who's about this size, and so I'm going to gift her this dress, and I'll get to see it look beautiful on her. And yeah, so that's what happened. But yeah, I am happy I'll get to see it on a friend, and I will see you in my next video that is soon and sure to come.